Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Booty Bopper, and I have been kind of out of it for a couple days. Had to get like a bunch of tooth work, dental work done. Got my new fake tooth in. Whole story that has me very triggered, but while I was kind of laid up, I wasn't really able to like focus on a lot of the kind of scripted work I've been doing. Part 2 of the Path of Radiance, but you cannot attack on player phase is basically done as far as like it's written, and I've got all the footage, but I got to put it together. But while I was kind of laid up out of it, sort of sleeping through like the last couple days, when I wasn't sleeping, I for some reason, because I'm an idiot, I picked up my 3DS for the first time in like quite a while, and I played through Fire Emblem Awakening, which I've not played that game since probably 2013. I think that's the year it came out. I've not played it all the way through since release. I like kind of dabbled in it here or there. Very like briefly messing around sort of the early game. But you know, Awakening is a game that I think a lot of people in the Fire Emblem community have a very kind of bad opinion of. For like, I'd say very complicated reasons. I think they're like legitimate reasons. Like, it is very poorly designed, although I don't think that that's a problem unique to Awakening. I think poor map design is like almost universal in Fire Emblem. I mean, just go look at like some of the maps from Genealogy or Mystery of the Emblem and like talk about how Awakening is like uniquely bad. Like, it's really not. I think Awakening was sort of like a weird point in the series, and it's a very weird game for Fire Emblem. Going back and playing it, I was surprised by how different it feels from other games, not just like because it's like an anime waifu fetish simulator, but also just because a lot of things that typically like matter or don't matter in Fire Emblem like are kind of turned on their head a little bit. It's a game that's super growth heavy in a way that a lot of other games aren't. Like, stat growth and stat creep really matters. And then I think it was just such a big hit, and there were a lot of people that came into the Fire Emblem community that were like into the like kind of dating simulator aspect to it, the kind of pairing up units, like all of that, the waifuism, all that. I think there were a lot of people that were super into that came into the community, and that I think probably rubbed a lot of Fire Emblem players the wrong way at the time. And I think so it sort of created like a backlash effect. Awakening was so popular, and I think a lot of the Fire Emblem community was very annoyed for why it was popular, and the people coming in wanted to talk about like their favorite pairings and their favorite supports, when most of us were like, no, you can't have happiness, you can't enjoy the games, you got to get into the raw numbers. That's all that matters. And for me, I guess I kind of came into the series in Awakening. There is a certain nostalgia for it. It's the first game in the series I played on launch, or close to launch. The game sold out almost immediately when it came out. I couldn't find it anywhere where I live for like a hot minute. It was the second game in the series I'd played. First one was Sacred Stones. And so I remember just being pretty excited for Awakening when it came out. I actually have like my OG original save file still on my cartridge from like the playthrough I did way back in 2013, which I thought about deleting to make room for stuff, but like I couldn't do it because it is it's so bad. It's so bad. The team comp, the units I'm using, it's a disaster. It's terrible. Like, it's so bad. Like, you can tell I was taking advice from like bad Fire Emblem players. Like, just a complete embarrassment. And, you know, going back to it, you know, now with like a, I guess, smarter kind of thing. Because back in the day, you know, the advice I took with like Awakening, like, I even got a couple people into the series through Awakening. And I remember the piece of advice I gave him. I was like, Frederick, you put him on the bench. That's where he belongs. He's bad. Don't use him. And so, so going back, looking at that file, looking at all that bad advice I gave people way back in the day, I got to apologize to Midnight Cowboy, got to apologize to X-Zero-X-Man. I put you all through hell with my bad advice. And Fire Emblem games are miserable enough without somebody giving you bad tips to make the game harder. I deeply apologize. Although X-Zero-X-Man was not for Awakening, that was bad Radiant Dawn tips, but that's a story for a different video and probably a higher effort video. But playing through Awakening again, I decided, I might as well attempt a tier list at it. I think Awakening is a difficult game to kind of tier characters in, but we're going to go ahead and give it a go. Because I do think it is interesting. I think the tier list in this game is very weird. I looked at some old tier lists and saw Frederick in the bottom 5, and I'm like, this is disgusting. So might as well put my own tier list out there. If you notice here, we don't have any of the child characters in the game on this tier list. This video is specifically just going to be the characters, I guess, sort of the quote-unquote first generation characters. Because child units in Awakening are extremely variable. They are kind of difficult to talk about and to really break down because you got to get into the minutia of what pairings you want for them, what's most optimal, what's most doable. Do you tier them at their best, or do you tier them at what's the most likely you're gonna get them, the most likely pairings, the easiest pairings? It's very complicated. So I think they kind of deserve their own video to kind of focus on them. Whereas I think the quote-unquote Gen 1 characters are a little easier to talk about. Now, the kind of rules, what I'm looking at in this tier list is you're playing kind of fast. You're not completely LTCing the game. I think Awakening is a pretty hard game to LTC, certainly in a more casual run, which is what I did, because it's so route heavy early on. But you're not playing slow either. You're not grinding. You're not cheesing reinforcements and getting up a shitload of experience that way. You're trying to get through the game efficiently enough and in the easiest way possible, because you could take any unit on here that's bad and be well, I'm going to feed them all the kills and then they're going to be God. Well, we're trying to go the easiest way, the path of least resistance, basically, through the game. And so that's how we're going to look at it. Awakening is probably, we talk about Fire Emblem, we tend to say we tend to divide the games up between enemy phase games and player phase games, where we're this game is all about enemy phase. Can you chuck hand axes around? Can you kill a shitload of dudes on enemy phase? Or enemies are really strong, you got to get all your action on player phase. I think that's interesting that we divide the games up like that, but I don't think it's entirely encompassing. I think there's also a secret third category of Fire Emblem, which is Cheese Emblem, which is, these are games that are not about, player phase or enemy phase. They're about how good are you at cheesing everything. And Awakening is a game with a ton of cheese. I'm not a big cheese fan. I like blue cheese, it's alright. Pepper Jack's pretty nice too. But the Awakening cheese, it gets me. It's so crazy. And so part of it is going to be how easily do you break the game is going to be basically what the units are going to be looked at for. And how easily can you get to that point? This is a game that's very friendly to snowballing, that I think actively encourages characters to be snowballed out of control, where you give them a shitload of levels. How easily can they snowball? How easy can they become ridiculous and overpowered? Because some characters on here, if you grind, you can make anybody on here a god, but if you don't grind, if you're just playing the story missions and the paralogs, then some units are going to really struggle to get going, and they're just going to fall by the wayside, while others are just going to on their own sort of naturally spiral out of control. Another thing is that pair-up bonuses, I think, are a thing I'm going to consider. What kind of buffs do you provide other people if you are paired up with them? Because there are going to be some characters that have terrible combat, but they provide really sick support bonuses if you pair them up with somebody. And I think units should be rewarded for being able to do that very easily at base. Now, You do have some complicated mechanics in this game. Second ceiling is what comes to mind, where like if you can get a unit to level 10, you can reclass them into certain classes. And then, so that's going to play in, do they have really good reclassing? Because if you have really good reclassing, then you can snowball a lot easier. Or you can become a better support bot. But like, let's say you have a character that's really bad at base and doesn't provide any like support that's worth it. And then you also have to get them all the way up to level 10 to reclass them to make them a good support bot. They're not going to get the same like kind of points for that a character who just out of the box is a really good support unit. And then like just the quality of your reclass options I think play into it, because this game basically lets you level up an unlimited amount of times, and sort of the better classes that you can do that in, the better of a unit you are. So I think those are the standards we're going to use. And I'm also going to be tiering this based off of hard mode. And the reason for that is because there's Lunatic and there's Lunatic Reverse. I actually think the hard mode and the Lunatic tier lists are pretty similar. Well, for all three of the difficulties, the tier lists are pretty similar. The difference is that the higher difficulty you go, the more extreme the list gets. So like, units that would be down here, like in C tier or D tier, are pretty much going to be all in F tier. Lunatic and Lunatic Plus is like just basically everybody's in F tier, and then you have like a handful, like 3 units that are up in like S tier and A tier. Like, it's pretty bad. You'd have like probably 5 units up here that I can think of, and the rest would be down here. So we're going to assume hard mode just so that we get a nice, pretty, well, like, put together, aesthetically pleasing tier list. So we might as well start at the beginning. We're going to go in recruitment order. So we're going to begin with Crom. And Crom is like probably before Dimitri and Edelgard and Three Houses like kind of came around. Crom probably best lord in the series up at that point. He's very, very, very good. He has some qualities at base that like seem bad. You know, he's sword locked at base, which is not a good thing in Awakening. Throughout the entire game, you don't want to be sword locked because there's no good 1-2 range option, and like the second half of this game is very enemy phase heavy. At the beginning though, that doesn't really matter a whole lot, and his personal weapon, the Falchion, is really good in this game. It is an unlimited durability sword. It only has the strength of an iron sword, but those aren't the features that matter. What does matter is that it has effective damage against wyverns, and if there's one thing that Awakening loves, it is enemy wyvern riders. They cannot get enough of them. So, you know, a lot of lords in the series, they got their rapier or whatever, and they're always facing weapon triangle disadvantage, and they're really frail, and they're really weak. Crom is none of that. He's very durable, and he's one of the easiest characters to snowball. You know, destroys wyverns. His reclassing options are, like, interesting, because you basically have, like, I think it's, like, Archer, which is, like, a meme, and then you have Cavalier, which is really good. When he reclasses to Cavalier, again, super easy to get him to level 10, super easy to reclass him to Cavalier. He gets to keep his sword rank, he gets to continue to use the Falchion, and he also gets to build up lance rank, get higher movement. Very, very good character. One of the easiest in the game to snowball, probably, like, I'd say, like, second easiest or so. Easy S tier. By the way, we're calling S tier. So good.
How's the pie?
So good.
And if you're unfamiliar with So Good, and you need to go watch Spider-Man 3, because that movie is incredible.
So good.
Then you got female and male Robin, which they're actually like a little different because of their reclassing options. Female Robin's definitely better. Because one of the big cheese you can do in this game is a skill called Gale Force, which allows you to move again if you kill an enemy. So like on player phase, let's say you've got female Robin, she's got Gale Force, she moves in, she kills an enemy, and then she can move again. And Gale Force allows you to like really cheese a lot of maps hard. There's not many maps in Awakening that you can one turn, but Gale Force basically like allows you to one turn one of the late game chapters. I think it's chapter 25, and then like 2, 3, 4 turn. A lot of other chapters really just like wrecks the game, completely breaks it. And Robin has just all the tools available to really kind of snowball out of control. Reliable 1-2 range at base. Robin is quite weak at base, but you can patch that up pretty easily with like a Lissa pair up or a Frederick pair up. That's pretty nice. That works out pretty well for Robin. But reliable 1-2. Weapon ranks are bad, but it doesn't matter. If you pair up Robin, her skill is, she gets like 1.5 times. She gets like 150% the normal experience yield if she's paired up, which just allows her to like get levels super quickly. You can second seal her into anything that you want. I actually did kind of like a Mimi thing with my Robin. I like set the boon on Robin to luck, and then second sealed him into a barbarian, which gives you like that weird skill where it's like if you kill an enemy, you have a luck percentage chance to get a small bullion. So like I did that just so I could get like a shitload of money to buy like a bunch of forges and Nosferatu tomes, and it's very silly. But even when I like wasn't trying to build the best Robin, just snowballs like crazy, gets so many levels up super fast, super good growths. Gale Force completely breaks the game. Easily better than Crom, because Crom has like some of the best, and there is female Robins definitely better, and there might even be like a full tier between them, especially if you're talking like Lunatic Plus, because Gale Force, which is like a skill you can only get in a female-only class, like just completely breaks the game. But really good. Crom, I should say, like one of the best enemy phases, very bulky, but like just nothing that breaks the game like this. Lissa, I think, is like interesting because staves in this game are like probably at their least useful they've ever been. There's no like warp staff in the game. The best thing you've got as far as staves go is like you've got Physic, which is really nice, and you've got Rescue. What's interesting about Rescue is that Rescue is an E rank staff in this game, so like anybody who reclasses to a staff user can like make use of it, which is something that I think kind of hurts Lissa a lot. Like she doesn't do a whole lot that's unique. She is your only healer early on, but like this is a game where you're not in like a huge need of a healer, I find, because the healing like formula in this game is just really whack. Like the heal staff is like 8 plus your magic divided by 2, so Lissa's healing like 10 or so, which is okay, but like it basically makes her no better than like a vulnerary. And this game has like really good like personal healing items, not just vulneraries, but like concoctions and elixirs. Concoctions in particular, just very nice, are going to heal you more than most of your healers can. And so I find like early game, she mostly runs around, at least for me, it was like as a pair up bot with Robin to give like a nice little magic boost, allow him to, you know, chip enemies and get that 1.5 experience yield. I think the biggest use for Lissa in the run, I think the easiest thing she does for you, the best thing she does for you, is that in Chapter 5, she can use Rescue to get these two characters, Maribel and Ricken, out of their very unfortunate joining situation. And that, I think, is worth something. It is definitely more it is a bigger contribution than what some of the like other units are gonna do. But again, like healing is not that great in this game, but it is nice. I'm gonna put her here because like early on, she frees up your player phases enough to where, like, I don't think she deserves to be here. But she can go here. She does have, like, really funny promotion options. You can make her into a war cleric, give her axes, have her, like, get, you know, kill everything with, like, silver axes and killer axes. And that's a lot of fun. That's, like, super memey, but it's very hard. You gotta, like, get her up to level 10, which is just... it's whatever. Like, it's kind of difficult to get her up that high. And ultimately, if you want to be a good staff user in this game, you really want to have wings. You really want to be a flyer, which is something we'll get into later. She can become that, because you can reclass her into a Pegasus Knight, but like, so you have to get her to level 10, and then second seal her into a Pegasus Knight, and then get her up to level 10 again, and then master seal her. That's a lot of investment. She does you the great rescue though in chapter 5, so I think like that's very valuable. So then you get Frederick, so like easy F tier, steals experience, bad unit, and then we've got Sully here, who's like, she's got room to grow, so we'll put her in S tier. No, fuck all that. No, Frederick, S tier, like, super good. I don't know if he's better or worse than, like, Crom. I feel like Crom's, like, kind of, what Crom does in the second half of the game, just completely destroy everything. You can give Crom, second half of the game, give him a silver sword, you know, while he's a paladin or something, give him a really good pair-up, he just destroys everything, and that pair-up could be, you know, Frederick. But Frederick, early game, like, it depends on how much you value early game, I suppose, because especially on Lunatic, you're just going to get, like, destroyed by everything. And Frederick really is, like, the only guy that can, like, take any kind of abuse in Lunatic. And, you know, that's extremely useful because the hardest part of Awakening is definitely, like, the first third, I would say, because that's before Robin's had a chance to really get out of control, before Crom has gotten out of control, and really Frederick is your only line of defense. Like, once you get past Frederick, your other units you're rocking with are, like, these scrubs down here, and, like, they're just gonna get absolutely obliterated on Lunatic. It's just not gonna work. Even on hard mode, like, Frederick is just your tankiest unit. It's, like, not even close. Right from, like, the prologue, he just is a badass, because you can, like, mages are super annoying in that chapter. You can just one-shot them with the Silver Lance. Like, very good weapon ranks. Weapon ranks build quite quickly in Awakening. So even though I think he's got, like... He has, like... Is it D... He has B lances, and then I think it's D swords and D axes, which is, like, kind of bad, but also, like... He has it for the whole game, so he can just build it up, like, crazy. What allows him to be, like, pretty usable throughout the whole game is that he's a great knight, and great knights provide really good support bonuses. If you pair them up with somebody, they get points in strength, defense, and movement, which is just crazy good. Those are like, of the 4 things you want from like a support, you want strength, speed, defense, or movement, and he gives you 3 of those, and that's just like crazy good. So it makes him viable in the late game. Even though it's just as a support unit. If you want to make him like a long-term viable combat unit, you can probably do it by like second sealing, and then dropping him back down to a tier 1 class, and then leveling him up again, getting him a shitload of levels. But he has to take like a... pre-promotes are in a weird spot when it comes to that, because if you second seal a pre-promote, they have to take a big haircut in terms of stats, because they lose like the class bases of a promoted class, and so like they have to rely on their personal bases, which are usually kind of whack, and so... Probably not really worth it, but really good, like completely necessary. You know, I think Awakening is one of the harder games in the series. It's probably the hardest game in the series at its highest difficulty level on Lunatic Reverse. And so like just having a really good Jagan just running around, killing everything with the Silver Lance, like actually living is just really, it's so good. So good. Okay, then you get like Sully, and I actually don't know what to like really do with her. I think like in a typical Fire Emblem game, a Cavalier that like joins super early probably gets like dumped in like A tier or something. But Sully is like, I think she really kind of struggles. I don't know if she's better or worse than like Lissa. But what you need to be like a good unit in an Awakening is like, you need really good second seal options. You need to be able to fight, and you need to get to that point pretty quickly. So characters that like start at a low base level and can't really fight really struggle in Awakening, and Sully is like no exception to that. She is mounted, which is nice, although being on a horse in Awakening is like not as crazy good in this game as it is in like other games. It's still better than being footlocked. It's just not that insane. Her weapon ranks are interesting. You get like, I think it's E swords and D lances, which is like, that's like classic Christmas calf stuff. So then when we get to the green guy, those will be flipped, which actually like those are pretty good weapon ranks, because E swords like sucks ass because it means you can only use bronze sword and like joke weapons like the tree branch. But D lances means she can throw around javelins, which is nice because early game Awakening gives you very limited 1-2 range options, and like your early on, like your 1-2 range options that are like consistent are going to be like Sully and Frederick and like Vike, I guess, with the hand axe, or like Robin and Muriel with like their tomes, but like it's not all that good. So Sully being able to use like javelins is pretty nice, but she falls off very fast. Like in my run, like I paired her with Frederick and had them be like, you know, had them breed, and it was like, she just like fell off. She fell off faster than Frederick did. Like I like really not all that impressive, but like early game is fine. It's just a struggle to ever get her to the point where she can like really hold her own, and that's what hurts. But early game utility, it's all right. I think maybe probably worse than Lissa, because Lissa does have that Chapter 5 rescue that she can do. Sully doesn't really have anything that good, but mediocre. Then we got Virion. It's like probably the worst unit in the game. One of the worst units in the series, probably. Bows usually are bad in Fire Emblem, and that's no exception in Awakening. Awakening bows are probably at their absolute worst. Do you think they'd be pretty good? Because there's like there's a shitload of enemy flyers in this game. Pegasus Knights, Wyvern Riders, just coming out of nowhere. They're coming out your ass. They're coming out of ambush reinforcements, coming out of forts, coming out of staircases. They're all over the place. The problem is that Virion's just combat is just not there. He can't double. He can't have an enemy phase. And reinforcements, you deal with reinforcements on enemy phase since they are all ambush spawns on Hard and Lunatic. Like there's just no place for a guy like Virion. Probably his best use is as like a parrot bot, as a stat backpack. And he gives like unpromoted units give like 6 base total stats. Archers give like 2 strength, 2 defense, and 2 skill. And that's pretty good. The defense and strength are really good, but it's diluted by the skill. So like there are other early game characters that are kind of bad that like are just much better pair up. So like he gets like 2 chapters of free utility, but even there, like I think chapter 1, when he joins, he just doesn't do much there. You pair him up with Sully, and like that's pretty much that. And then chapter 2, you like pair him up with, you know, probably Sully again, or like Stall, and then he goes on the bench, and then that's where he's going to sit forever. He's just really, really, really bad. And at a low base level, you just can't get him up to level 10 in an efficient playthrough. You could grind him up there and then probably make him like a god, but Virion is just so bad. Then you got Stall. Not a fan of Stall at all. He's basically Sully, though he is worse. There are differences in their stats. I can't quite remember the exact differences. I want to say like Sully is faster than Stall at base, I'm pretty sure. But what really separates them is the weapon ranks. Stall has D swords and E lances, and so the difference is like Sully, she can use bronze swords, bronze lances, iron lances, javelins, and then Stall can just use bronze lances, iron swords, bronze swords, and that's just not nearly as versatile. It's not nearly as good, so you've got to like really work through those E-Lance days, and it's brutal with Stall. I have to actually check what the Cavalier pair-up bonuses are. I don't remember them being that good. Give me just a second. So the Cavaliers, they give at base they give 2 strength, 2 defense, skill, and speed, 1 each of those, and like that's good, but with it's too balanced almost. Like the best part about like pairing up with Stall, sort of like I think his best use is that you can pair up a footlocked unit to him, and then he can like carry them over and really like move them very far, but you can only do that like one turn, and then like you're stuck to footlocked again until you switch them back. And maps in Awakening are pretty fucking relentless, just all the time. So you just not a whole lot of use for this guy. I think the weapon rank thing is honestly like a really big deal. It makes him just such a significantly worse combat unit, and he just doesn't really do a whole lot for you. I think this guy, like, and this is where like tier lists for Awakening look really weird, at least to me, compared to other Fire Emblem games. At least the way I'm looking at it is that like you've got like a Lord up here and then 2 early game Cavaliers down here. Like the only thing that like makes sense is we've got Frederick up here. Then we got Vike. I think Vike for a lot of people's like instant F tier. I mean, he has like a really bad start because he comes on without a weapon, which I actually think is really interesting because Vike is like Vike with a weapon is like kind of like butts, and you don't really want to use him because like his like defense is kind of bad. He's got HP plus 5 as a skill. That's pretty good. It's like fighter skill. Like that's all right. So he's got a lot of HP. He's got like 30 HP at base. It's really nice. But like axes are inaccurate, and he just doesn't get to do a whole lot of combat during the early chapters. However, the fact that he comes in unarmed, I think actually kind of helps his case a little bit because it tells you right from the beginning, this guy's a parrot bot. Because the thing about fighters is that they give 4 strength and 2 defense, and that's really, really good. Because early on in Awakening, you're just really struggling to deal damage. And you want like big damage buffs, you want defensive buffs. I mean, that's big points in like 2 critical stats. So as a parrot bot, Vike is really, really good. And I know I was just like dunking on his combat, saying it's bad, and he's bad, and he really is. He doesn't have a whole lot of like long-term. I mean, everybody in this game has like long-term potential if you're willing to put in the resources, but like his stats just don't hold up. But he is like able to like, I think it's like chapter 3 or so, you can like, you get that droppable hammer, you can give it to him, and he like one-shots the boss, or very nearly one-shots that boss, which is an armored knight. And then chapter, I think it's 4, you know, there's like armor knights there that he can like kind of take out. So like pretty good for that. Good parrot bot that I quite like. For that, I'll probably dump him here. One thing you'll notice about this, and I think this is where like disagreements are going to come in, is that I really value good parrot bonuses. I actually think I value that a lot more than like mediocre combat, because parrot bonuses, really good parrot bonuses, aid in just breaking the game, because you can snowball out of control. Also, the tier list just kind of shrunk, so we'll readjust that. Okay, so aspect ratio is probably a little different now. It's just sort of fucked up, but yeah, I value like pair up quite a bit, and that's actually like I think the one saving grace for Muriel is that Muriel like provides okay chip. It's never gonna double, not really, not without like, you know, giving her big like speed pair up or speed wings or like shit like that, which is not worth the investment, I don't think. But if you're trying to do like a magical Robin in that specific instance, I think Muriel is really nice because she gives +4 magic as a pair-up bot, and like that's really good. That increases Robin's magical output like a whole lot, which I actually like quite a bit because enemies just hit so hard in Awakening early game, and being able to like chunk for big damage with Robin is just really nice. Now, technically, like, I guess if you had them separated, you could do more chip damage on player phase, but like enemies are just so scary and they're so numerous in Awakening that like Muriel's gonna get like absolutely deleted by anything that gets near her. So I think like early on she's like quite nice for that reason. And makes a better like magical pair up than like Lissa. Once you get her, it frees Lissa up to like actually do like some healing and stuff that like you want, like other like kind of cleric-y things. So Muriel's like okay, like she's nice. I would say I think it's actually quite limited, like the amount of like magic you kind of need, because eventually you're gonna want like, I think most players are gonna want to like do support bots based off of like, you know, marriages they want to like get and the kids they want to like recruit. And Muriel just does not hold up as a support unit all that long, and like as an offensive powerhouse, she just doesn't have the enemy face to do it. Being a mage in Awakening is pretty brutal for the most part if you're not a dark mage, which we'll get to that later. So Muriel, like, I'll probably put her like here. I think like Sully's got more long-term potential. She's got like the nice mount and everything. She can throw javelins around, which is pretty nice. Got a little more bulk. You can give her like Frederick, and that'll like boost her up a whole lot. Like probably more viable than Muriel. I don't know. I feel like I'm either overrating or underrating everybody because I'm kind of thinking like Lunatic a lot, and I just want to like put everybody in F tier. Now here we got Sumiya. Now Midnight Cowboy and the Iron Colon are probably gonna like roast me for this, but like, man, Pegasus Knights in this game are just so good. They are so good. Like, it's hard to say like which Fire Emblem game flyers are the best in, but like Awakening is pretty damn good for flyers because like, especially Pegasus Knights, because their typical problems get kind of solved by Awakening's mechanics of like pairing up and all that kind of thing. And Awakening like maps are generally, I think people accuse them of being flat, and they are, but they do have like a lot of terrain or like a lot of empty space that like kind of gets chewed up or that chews up other units. And so like flying is just super good. Like you can fly, you know, Frederick or Crom over somewhere. And a lot of people pair up Sumiya with Crom. It's pretty much the canon one. Or, you know, you just give them a really good pair up and then they can fight and go wherever they want and destroy things. And the other thing, though, that makes Pegasus Knights really, really good in this game is that when they promote, they get staffs instead of an extra weapon type, which is just so unbelievably good to have, you know, a flying staff user. The thing is that in this game, the rescue staff is E rank. And that's completely broken. That like you get flyers and rescue, and you don't even have to like really work for it. Sumiya is like easy A tier. Like she does fall off. She's not like long term like viable combat, but like she has enough going for her throughout the game that's just really good. Like early game flying utility. You can patch up her like weak points in combat very, very easily, and we'll talk about how you can do that in just a second. But very, very, very so good. Just so good.
So good.
And then just having a late game where you get to be a flying staff user, it's very nice. Like, oh man. Oh, Pegasus Knights, man. I can't get enough. Okay, so then we got like Kellum here, and this is where this tier list starts to feel really weird for me. Actually, one second here. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is that like Pegasus Knights give you 3 speed when you pair up with them, and that's just like, oh man, that's so good. Like, they also give 3 res, which is kind of like whatever, because like enemies just hit so hard that like the resistance doesn't really matter a whole lot. But 3 speed is just so nice. Just everything glowing I can say about Pegasus Knights I'm going to, like, so good. Okay, but Kellum, this is where like it gets weird. This is where I guess you insert like a no, I can't see him, let's move on to this guy joke. But Kellum, kind of like OD, I'm not tripping right here. I got a good reason to put him in B tier, okay? So Kellum is like just like trash at combat, like terrible, 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 awful, 4 movement, armor knight, so bad, really bad. But, and maybe this is where I'm overvaluing pair up a lot. This motherfucker gives you big bonuses in strength and defense, the 2 stats that you need most of all. Like, he's just a walking, like, Draco shield and energy drop that you can just give to anybody, especially like a flyer. You dump like Kellum on like Sumiya or one of the later flyers that we get, suddenly their issues are patched up. They can just fly around and like kill everything and like not die. And well, on Lunatic they're still gonna like die a little more often, but like, god damn, like the pair up bonuses he gives are so good, and they are like viable pretty much throughout the entire game. If you want to make him like better, like eventually you are going to want to promote him, and that does take some resources. But if he's just flowing around the game, getting, you know, on, you know, the backs of some flyer, he will hit level 10 eventually. And then you promote him, and then the pair up bonuses are even better because general pair ups are strength and defense, but even more of it. And that's really awesome. And then you stick him on somebody that builds a support, and he like just gives so much. Because like I think like the fact that he like allows characters that just are not impeded by terrain and that have really high movement, that he allows those characters to have really good combat, is a lot more valuable than like the mediocre combat contributions of like Stahl, Sully, and Vike. I really think that those are significant, what Kellum can like do for you in that regard. As a combat unit, again, he's just trash because he's an armor knight, he has 4 movement. But on the flip side, since you can put him on a flyer, if you ever do need his bulky defense early game, like you can just like flip it around. Like you give him to Sumiya and Kellum switch, and then Kellum has got the speed bonus from Sumiya, and then all of a sudden he's not getting doubled. Now, like this is again very specific, but it's something that's super easy that Kellum does that I think is worth the cost. I think having like a unit like Kellum on your roster is like better than like having your 10th or 11th best combat unit out there, because like in this game your 10th or 11th best combat unit's probably gonna get like just absolutely annihilated like immediately, so you might as well have a really good pair up bot. So that's my case for Kellum right there you go, look at that, B tier, higher than 2 Cavaliers. What is this? Somebody help, send help please. Okay, then we got Donald. This is like the easiest F tier of like ever. I remember like Donald used to be like everybody was like, oh, he's top, he's S tier. Like we gotta make like there's Donald tier, because he's like got room to grow or something, and he like, you know, has bad stats and like dies instantly and like can't fight anything, so that means he's good. Because like eventually he can be as good as Frederick, so like I guess that makes it better than him. I don't know, like. What do you want me to say? The arguments for like why Donald are bad is like pretty standard stuff. Terrible bases, just dies, kills nothing, does no damage, bad. His recruitment is kind of hilarious though, because to recruit him you have to like do his paralog, and he has to level up in that paralog or you don't get to keep him, which is like, I think just a really great joke that like if you have the patience to level up this guy once, then you deserve to keep him, and you're probably the type of person that's going to use him. And like I know people can rattle off all of his second seal options and all that bullshit, but like it doesn't change the fact that you have to actually get him to level 10, and he's so weak that it's not like you can like dump him on like some other character. It's not like you could like, I'm gonna pair him up with Frederick and then he'll like accumulate enough experience. He does so little damage, he's not even going to be able to do like the pair up attack chip to get up to level 10. Just complete disaster of a unit. Like the only way to make him usable is like, it's like someone like Kellum is really good because like he's bad, but you can like dump him on the back of someone good and like make a good character even better, like Sumiya, or you can like give him to Frederick for even more bulk, or give him to Crom, or give him to Robin. Donald, you got to take one of your actively good units probably. Like you could give him Kellum as well. I'm not saying you can't do that, but like Kellum is better on units that like, ooh, Donald dies still, because he probably still gets doubled. You'd probably have to take someone really good like Frederick and like dump him on Donald. And that's just like why would you do that? Like this is not worth it. Like that's so bad, so bad. Okay, then you got like Lanku here. Now Lanku, I kind of like is sort of like weird, because the first half of Awakening is like sort of split between enemy and player phase, because you don't have a lot of 1-2 range options. So like being sword locked isn't the worst thing in the world. What is really good is being able to like double and like kill things on player phase. And that's something that Lanku can do with some reliability. He uses the killing edge, which is always a little unreliable because you're kind of banking on crits, but he doubles everything pretty much. Has got weapon triangle on the endless amount of like Wyvern Riders that they're throwing at you. Super dodgy. one of your few like reliable dodge tanks early on. Although dodge tanking is never truly reliable, it is something that he can do that is sort of a niche on his part. So he does have, he's sort of like Joshua in Sacred Stones, where like there's this hot minute where he's one of your better combat units because he doubles and he kills things on player phase, and that's really nice early game. And then he just stops being good when units like trade in their weapons for like hand axes and tomahawks, and you got mages coming out. He just like ceases to be good. And even if you like second seal him at that point, his best weapon rank is swords, so he's going to be dropped down. He's not even going to get like a 1-2 range option immediately. You're going to have to spend a second seal on him, then invest in his lance rank, or I don't remember exactly what he second seals into, but it's going to be a pain in the ass to get him 1-2 range. It's not really worth it. What he does do that's really good though, and the reason why it's not, I don't think it's even worth like putting a second seal on him unless you just really want to make him a good combat unit, is that the Myrmidon class gives sick support bonuses for speed. Like, Myrmidon class, it's 4 speed and 2 luck. The 2 luck is like kind of interesting because luck in Awakening is like kind of good because for like the first third of the game, enemies just always have like this mad obnoxious like 1 to 8% crit on you. It's just super annoying. So like the luck one's not that bad, but the big one is like speed. And so as soon as he falls off as a combat unit, you can just stick him as a stat backpack on someone else, and then all of a sudden they like double. You can like give him to Frederick, and then Frederick's gonna like hold up longer. You can give him to Crom, or you can give him to Robin, or you can give him to like well, those are probably the best options that are on the table right now. But like if you look later in the game, later in the cast, you can give them to someone like Cherche or Tharya, and he'll just like allow them to double a lot more reliably. And like again, I think there's a lot of value in being like able to help a character snowball out of control. I don't think his parrot bonuses are as good as Kellum's because Kellum adds absolute durability, but Lanku, well, Lanku does have that period though where like he is like kind of a good combat unit, so like killing edge at base is pretty good. Probably put him above Kellum. I don't know. That's like a tough one. This is like, I guess B tier is like the you give really good parrot bonuses or like kind of butt cheeks at combat for most of the game tier. Kellum is like always bad at combat though. I mean, maybe Kellum's like worse than Vike. I don't know. This is a spicy take, so I'm gonna leave it there. Okay, then you got like Ricken. Ricken's like really bad. He's an interesting like recruitment. He has like my favorite recruitment situation in the series. It's very similar to like the Brigid, Claude, Tilchu recruitment in Genealogy of the Holy War, where him and Maribel are just, they're up shit creek at the start of chapter 5. Like there's like one safe space for them to stand, and they're just gonna get wrecked because that chapter's got like Wyvern Riders coming down. It's got like, Myrmidons that are like gonna like double and kill them all, and it's a bad situation. You either like, there's 2 ways to solve that situation, which is either you rescue them out, you pair them up, and then you have Lissa rescue them, or you just use Frederick, and then like that just solves all your problems. I think a lot of new players struggle with this recruitment because they don't think to use rescue, or maybe they don't have it, and like they've been told by like bad players like bench Frederick because he steals experience and he's like bad and doesn't have room to grow. But Ricken himself though, like the best work he does is in that chapter itself. He comes with the I think it's the Elwind tome, and he can use it to shoot down wyverns with massive chip damage. I don't think he quite one-shots them because he is very weak, but he does significant chip damage to like the toughest enemy type, and that's like really good. And he kind of like has that going for him for a while in the early game. One thing that helps him is that early on in Awakening there is a string of like desert chapters where there are like a shitload of wyverns, and so like he can move very like quickly through the sand and like chip wyverns. It's okay. But he actually like kind of sucks ass. I don't know what I'm talking about. He's bad. He's better than Muriel because like his joining situation allows him to like really like damage enemies better. I think he does more than Muriel does initially. I think they have the same weapon rank at base. I'm not entirely sure on that one. But you could just give, like... I mean, if you really want, you can just, like, actually... Yeah, he's worse than Muriel because of availability. Like, you can just give the Elwind to Muriel, and then she can do, like, the same shit. But he can do it in his starting chapter. And his starting situation actually sucks. So, like, it forces you to do strategy in the strategy game. And, like, I'm not here for strategy. I'm here for cheese. So, like, actually, Ricken, like, kind of butt cheeks. Let's put him there behind stall. Then you got Maribel, who I've never kept alive a single time I've ever played this game. So, like, I guess Rip Brady. But Maribel is like Lissa, but, like, better. But, like, also, like, staff still kind of, like, suck. And then you would think she's a troubadour, so you think she's on a horse, you think she'd be better than Lissa. But then, like, immediately after she joins, there's, like, several desert chapters that, like, just make Lissa better there as well. So I think, like, that combined with, like, poor staff utility in this game, and the fact that Lissa does have to rescue her out, like, she's worse. I put her, like, probably right there. She's, like, good. Because, like, on a horse, I think it's 6 move. Troubadour, more move than Lissa. That's pretty good. And so, like, why not? You can just use both. Like, I use both. Like, healing is so weak in this game that you kind of need both sometimes. But, like, it's very, like, what? Like, who gives a shit? Bad. Pan, also, like, kind of bad. Pan joins... in a pretty interesting situation, not as interesting as like the Maribel Ricken one, but she kind of like just shows up and then starts like killing things, and it's a very good first impression. I think she gives a very great first impression. And she has like, you know, pretty nice player face combat initially, but she does have this big problem of like, I'm locked to one range and I, you know, can't do anything about it. Really. Well, I mean, she can reclass, but like, but then she like goes to like E weapon ranks, which is like sucks and is bad, and so her damage output that just goes down the shitter, and she's like a weird class too. Let me see what her pair up bonuses are. Her pair up bonuses are actually very good. I don't have them memorized, by the way. That's why I have to keep checking. I got like a list. Because like fuck, there's no way I could memorize all that shit. She gives 3 strength and 3 speed, which is quite nice. It is very good. It makes her like a very good support bot. But her combat like kind of falls off a cliff pretty quickly because she doesn't have reliable and strong 1-2 range. For like, there's like definitely a minute where she's like about like Lanku in terms of combat, though I don't think she kills as reliably as Lanku, because Lanku's got like, he's got weapon triangle, can do more on enemy phase early game when enemies don't really have 1-2 range. But she is a good pair up bot. I don't know if she's as good as Kellum. I like bulk in pair up. I like a shitload of speed and a shitload of bulk. She doesn't really provide bulk. She does give good speed and she does give good strength. I think that's pretty significant. I don't like her bonuses as much as these two guys though. So like, again, I guess B tier is the I give really good pair up bonuses tier. Gaius, kind of like really bad, like really fucking bad. Like the problem with Gaius is that he's a thief. And so like thief utility seems like it'd be really good in Awakening because you can't get chest keys and door keys very reliably. The problem is that most of the chests in Awakening feel like jokes and they feel like traps and they feel like they're designed to just troll the player and screw you over like every step of the way. Because Awakening is just a completely relentless game where like on hard mode and on Lunatic and then Lunatic Reverse, like you need to get out like as soon as possible. Like fuck the chests in the map. That's basically the philosophy you have to take, because every chapter is like, just can we pour, how many more ambush spawns can we pour on you? How many more reinforcements do you want? How many like just pouring reinforcements into route maps is just like the Awakening MO. And so like you can't really send Gaius off to go get Cherche because he's going to get destroyed. And then, like, if you pair him up with somebody that can protect him and you're going off to get Cherche, well, then you're taking that person away from, like, the combat. And usually the chests are, like, way out of the way and, like, they're mad obnoxious to get to. And, like, you need all hands on deck early game Awakening and during a lot of the route maps. And, like, Gaius is, like, whatever. I mean, I guess you could give him, like, points for the thief utility. But, like, there's very rarely really good treasure, and, like, even when it is, it's, like, not worth the hassles. Like, I don't really like Gaius at all. And, like, his whole thing is, like, I just really fucking like candy. And I don't want to think about things that rot your teeth right now. Like, that's just, like, F tier just for that, honestly. Maybe that's not fair. He does more than these two. I mean, like, I think there's definitely, like, a gap between what Gaius can do and what these two, you know, scrubs do. Like, these guys are just really bad. I should mention, by the way, Donald's, like, pair up, even if you want to use Donald as, like, a support bot. I forgot to mention this. He gives plus skill and plus luck, which is just, like, fucking awful. Gaius, though, gives you, like, he gives you speed, skill, and movement. And, like, I think, like, the point of movement that he gives is probably more useful than anything, like, these guys do. Probably. Because, like, that's a point of movement. You give a point of movement to, like, Frederick. You have a point of movement to Robin. And they just kill everything. Like, that seems pretty good. And by the way, like, I'd say, like, the gap between Muriel and, like, Ricken, because there's, like, the pair-up thing that they can do. Like, by the time you get Ricken, like, the pair-up that Muriel provides, like, Robin, I think is pretty obsolete. So, like, just worthless for, like, a long time. Ricken, just bad. And you got Cordelia. She's a Pegasus Knight. And, oh, Pegasus Knights, instant A tier. Like, pretty easy. You can see the bias here. Like, it's coming out full force. Like, I'm not even going to hide it. Like, everything I said about Sumiya is the same. I think she's, like, it's kind of hard to say. I think long term she's a better combat unit than Sumiya. She hits harder, and that's, like, significant. But you can make the argument for availability. She gets, like, I think the better combat pushes her over, because it seems like she joins a lot later, but Awakening is very front heavy with the Gen 1 units. So she joins very early in the game. I think, yeah, I'll put her right there, because better combat, and then she still gets the staff utility. Just out of control good. Again, flying in Awakening is just incredibly overpowered, like it is in all Fire Emblem, because, like, you can just, like, fly. You can just fly people, like, straight to bosses. You can trivialize some of the more difficult kill boss chapters, which we'll probably talk about later when we get to, like, Olivia or something, but fly over terrain is just super busted. You could just, like, you know, take Crom, take Frederick, take Robin, dump them somewhere. Or they can be really good combat units. You give them a Kellum, you give them, like, a Pan, you give them a, you know, well, they probably don't need, like, a Lanku, because these are really fast units, so, like, a Kellum type support, or, like, a Frederick is, like, a lot better, but super, super good. Like, the fact that they get staff utility means that, like, by the point they would fall off as combat units when, like, Awakening becomes all about, like, juggernauting and being, like, just a complete, like, war crime incarnate, just means, like, they just hold their own the whole time. And they get that really easily, too. Like, a lot of units on here can, like, reclass, go to Pegasus Knight, and then get up and do that. But the fact that they have such easy access to flying staffs and flying rescue is so good. It's absolutely broken. And then you got, like, Gregor. And, like, he's cool. He's also sword locked, and that's kind of whack. But he does start at level 10, I think. I'll have to, let me check on that. I think he starts at level 10. Yeah, he instantly starts at level 10, so you can, like, or he starts at level 10 so you can instantly promote him, or you can second seal him if you want. It's probably worth it so they can get more skills. He doesn't have, like, the best second seal options. He can, like, go back to a level 1 mercenary. He can become a Myrmidon or a Barbarian. None of that's, like, particularly good. Probably Barbarian's the best, so that he can, like, get his axe rank up real quick, get him hand axes, and then, like, have him go to town. That's probably the best path for him. But he is, like, somewhat self-sufficient right from the beginning. I mean, like, he's gonna get eaten alive on Lunatic like everybody else, but like he will at least do it with more damage done to the enemies before he goes down. And like that's pretty significant, I think. And then as well, like the fact that he's a mercenary at base means that like you can give someone like something like it's like 3 speed and a point of defense, or like 3 skill 2 speed defense, something like that, which is okay pair-up bonuses. That's decent. You can make him a better pair-up bot by making him like a Myrmidon, but like you have to spend the second seal on that. And like one thing that hurts a lot of units that need second seals to like be good is that second seals are just hard to come by early game, and you really want to like be dumping them into like Crom and Robin and like these ridiculous units that like are just gonna get out of control. And there really isn't a whole lot of a point to like spend a second seal just so that like Gregor can be like a better like support bot. I'd say he's like probably somewhere around here. I think that's like kind of fair for him because he's not as good a support bot as Vake, but I think he has better combat. But he joins right when the game starts to kind of get a little aggressive with the 1-2 range, so I'm not quite sure, but let me rescale this tier list real quick. Yeah, I think this is kind of fair for him. I mean, maybe he's better than Vake. Nah, I like Vake's pair-up bonuses better. Now Noe, this is like actually a crime. Like she's actually like, it's criminal. And don't act like this is okay, that this character design is okay. We'll ignore it. Well, we're talking about it, so we're not ignoring it. But like, no. Noe this is a problem. But as a unit, she's still a problem because she does have an advantage over like a lot of units. Like she has an disadvantage over Gregor, who she often gets like compared to because they join at the same time. Is that, you know, she's a Manakete, she uses Dragon Stones, and they have 1-2 range. And they give her pretty good stat bonuses, too. They up her resistance a lot, her defense a lot, her strength a lot. They're very, like, mighty weapons. The problem is that she has, like, I think it's like 19 HP at base, and that's ass cheeks. That's not gonna get it done at all. The problem in Awakening is that enemies do hit very, very hard. And Noe is just not going to survive enemy phases without like grinding her up or giving her like an angelic robe, which you could maybe make an argument that like, or Seraph robe I think is what they're called in this game. You can make the argument that she should get one. But I really don't think it's enough because like, again, like 26 HP is just not enough to carry you in this game. You need big, girthy HP in Awakening to be really good, and Noe just doesn't have it. On normal mode, she's probably like a killer, but hard mode, she struggles, then on Lunatic, she just gets like absolutely like melted, and it is depressing. Not a whole lot of good combat potential anywhere to be found. The support bonuses though for Manaketes are kind of good, but they're also like split between like strength and magic, which is like not what you want. You want like all in one or the other pretty much. You want something that's gonna like really help out a unit. Maybe like that's useful if you're going like Gregor with the Levin sword or something, some like stupid shit like that. But even the para bonuses are not like terrific. They're kind of whatever. I don't know if she's like down here kind of bad, but I think she's kind of down here kind of bad, honestly. Then you got Libra. Weird unit. War Cleric, axes, and staves. That's so nice. Like, that's so good. Comes with the killing axe at base, C axes. Probably your only axe user at C other than Frederick at the point in the game that he joins. Because you're probably not fucking using Vike for combat. So Libra just like really, really good kind of pre-promote filler unit. Hits things really hard, can heal you up, throw you some men, throw you some physic when you get it later at base, no investment. Like I was really impressed. Like in my run, I didn't really use Libra early on, and then like second half of the game, like after kind of like Frederick had fallen off and like Maribel had died, I just kind of plugged Libra right back into the army, and like he kind of like was OD good because he could just physic people with decent range, and if I needed him to come in with the killing axe, he could. Now, he wasn't like good, he wasn't knock your socks off, he was like probably like one of the worst combat units I had, but his bases are like good enough to carry him for a while without a whole lot of investment, and then the C staves just like are really nice. Probably like I like his combat and his healing better than I like Pan's like brief combat usefulness and like parrot bonuses. Like, so I'll probably put Libra right there. You could probably make an argument too about this one. Maybe put him at the top of B tier. He's somewhere around here. I'm not entirely sure. I'll leave him below Kellum and Lanku because it doesn't look right, and so like I kind of like that. Then we got Tharya. This is a difficult one because like my instincts tell me here, but I'm also kind of like maybe right here. The thing about Tharya is that like, just to trigger people, we'll put her at S tier right now. The thing about Tharya is that she's just like has one of the easiest and quickest ways to just cheese the game. In Awakening, weapons don't have weight, and Nosferatu tomes are buyable, and then Tharya just has like 12 speed at base and like 10 defense and like over 20, like pretty bulky for a magical unit that can just like heal herself on enemy phase with Nosferatu. I think for a lot of people, this is just the easiest way to completely break Awakening is Tharya and Nosferatu tanking. The reason why I'm like kind of tempted, or like why I'm split between A tier and so good, is because it does take a while before Nosferatu becomes buyable. You have to like get through chapter 13. That's about the halfway point of the game. But I'm gonna, you know what, if we give Frederick like all these points for like being useful early game, I think like breaking the entire second half of the game like deserves S tier as well. I think the second half of the game is not as hard as the first half, so I think Frederick is still better overall. But like, just completely bust the game wide open. Nosferatu's D rank, she's like one of the few characters that can use it. You can't use it with like Ricken and Muriel because they're not dark mages, only dark mages, and I think it's sorcerers, something like that. They are the only classes that can use that you can use Nosferatu, and it is completely broken. It is it's so good. How's the Nosferatu tanking? So good. Like it is OD busted. And she's an example of a character that it's like really good to like give her like support, give her like a pair up, like give her Lanku and then she'll double everything with Nosferatu. You'll give her like Kellum and she tanks, give her like Henry and she tanks and also does a shitload more damage. Like it's just, there's a lot you can do. Like by herself, she's good enough at tanking, and you give like her someone else to like back her up, and then she just like completely massacres. Like it's one of the easiest ways to beat the military chapter, which is probably the most notoriously difficult chapter in the game. She just completely like bulldozes that chapter with Nosferatu. If you just buy her like 4 tomes and like send her in, she'll just like, you can undeploy everybody except for like Crom, and then like you could just like pair Crom up with Tharya and then like just like solo the map that way. Like it's completely busted. And then she just keeps doing it, and then she snowballs out of control and her stats keep getting better. She keeps getting a shitload of level ups. You can second seal her back to level 1 and then just keep going and going and going and going. It is unbelievable. And you get Anna. Anna's kind of interesting because she uses swords, staves, and has lock touch at base, so she can like grab chests and stuff. Now I think the same thing for her thief utility applies to her that applies to Gaius, which is that like chests in Awakening are kind of like not worth it, and they're like traps, and they're just designed to like get you to waste your time and get you killed by ambush spawns. But definitely better than like Gaius, because see, Anna does have like decent speed, and She can use staffs, which again, staff utility is not great in Awakening, but it's always a good thing to have. You always benefit from having easy access to staffs, because like, you never know when a physic's going to come in handy, or you're going to need to mend somebody. And I think she's got D staffs at base. She can't physic, but she can mend, and that's really good. And you can have her like, going for chests isn't all that good, but you know, opening doors is in some chapters, because they, like, Awakening has this thing of just like putting doors like in indoor maps. Like, why the fuck do they have doors indoors? Like, why would you do that? Architecture. So she does have like some utility. It's quite nice. It's probably about the same type of utility that Lissa provides. So probably put her around there, I think. Maybe above Lissa? I'd say she's better than Gregor, actually. So, like, yeah, I'd probably put her about right there. She's not, like, a crazy good combat unit. Her combat's probably about par with Gregor, but, you know, hey, I mean, mend. You can use mend with no investment. That's pretty good. It's really good.
So good.
Then you get Olivia here, and, like, dancers are, like, broken in Fire Emblem, and this game is no exception. To me, I think the hardest chapter in Awakening is chapter 14. It's the one where you're, like, in the boats that are, like, parked out by the lake.
I'm still parked out by the lake.
Just an awful chapter, because you're stuck on these two fucking boats, and you've got, like, 4 turns of ambush spawning Pegasus Knights coming down on you, and then the chapter is already at the beginning filled with, like, Pegasus Knights and flyers and all this annoying shit. And, you know, dancing, though, allows you to beat that chapter in, like, 1 turn. I think that's the best contribution that she makes in the playthrough. Is that lets you 1 turn chapter 14, which is, like, that is, though, so good. And dancing is just really broken in general still, even though there's a lot of route maps and there's a lot of things. I find that, like, keeping Olivia safe is a lot harder in this game than it usually is in most games, especially if you want to have her in a position where she can dance multiple turns, because there's not a whole lot of chapters you can, like, 1 turn, and it's difficult to keep her safe, but you can't, like, dancing is it's just broken, and it's just so good. And, like, if someone is enabling you to, like, 1 turn really difficult chapters or 2 turn really difficult chapters, like, that is like so good. I'd put her in S tier, but I think she's probably one of the, I feel like this is where I'm kind of like a scrub at Awakening, because, like, probably like a hardcore Awakening gamer, put her like right here and be like, she breaks the game, but, like, she doesn't break it as bad as Gale Force, and not around for a whole lot of the game. She's around for like half the game, roughly, just over half, which is good, but, like, dancing just doesn't do as much, I think, in this game. Which is a remarkable thing to say, because here she is at the top of A tier. Like, so good. And then you've got Cherche, or Cherche. I'd say Cherche is probably the closest. I know she's in, like, Heroes, but, like, I don't fucking know shit about Heroes, so, like, whatever. Cherche is, like, Wyvern Rider at base, and that's, like, a really good class. It's just, like, instantly, like, right there. Like, there you go. I don't think I need to say anything else. Flying unit. Flying girl on flying mount. I'm gonna put it in A tier, and you're, like, not gonna stop me. She has, like, sort of, like, she has less availability than, like, these 2 flyers, but her combat is a lot better at base, because she has axes, and axes are really fucking good. And she doesn't have durability problems either. She can, like, use the hammer at base. She can, like, her joining chapter, she has, like, a lot of armor knights she can slaughter. Give her, like, Lanku support, and she kills everything. And it's like not a problem. It's like, yeah, just murder everybody. Like, it's pretty good. So yeah, like, the speed does end up being sort of the problem, I think, with Cherche, but, like, again, like, you're in such a broken class in this game, and very, very easy, I think, to, like, give her one like Lanku. I wish I had more to say about her, but, like, flies around and kills things is, like, that's all you need. Okay, and then you have Henry. And I think for a lot of players, Henry is like, who gives a shit? Because Tharya is like waifu and like fan service and like kills everything. And Henry's like the same class as her, but worse. So like, he's like down here with like Virion. I think that's like the way a lot of players probably think. Certainly what I thought when I first played the game. But like Henry is really good, but like not as good as Tharya. Because I just want to make this comparison because it's like it's not useful like comparing characters just because they're like the same class or whatever. But it also, I think, illustrates why Tharya is like really good, but also why like Henry is still like A tier. He's probably like right here. Because still Nosferatu tanking just breaks the game, and he can do it at base. But he doesn't do it as well, and he does it for less. He's around like 4 or so fewer chapters than Tharya, which sucks. He comes in right around the time Nosferatu becomes viable, but not only does Tharya have the availability edge, Henry has 4 fewer speed. He has 8 speed at base. Tharya has 12. And like that is a significant difference. Because Tharya's also had time to like just accumulate more speed. So like for Henry to really Nosferatu tank extremely well, it's imperative that he gets like a Lanku pair up, or maybe like a Gregor one. Maybe not Gregor because that's like strength, and he needs just pure speed or magic. So like he needs like Lanku to like help him like double or even not get doubled. I don't, on hard mode there's not really a risk of him getting doubled, but on Lunatic there certainly is. So he needs the speed patched up. Tharya can kind of do it on her own. You just want to like give her like a Lanku or like a Ricken or something just to make it overkill early on. But the other thing about Henry, and the same applies to Tharya, is that dark mages give +3 magic, +3 defense. And that's like tailor-made for making Nosferatu tanking even more broken. So like Henry is like, not only can he Nosferatu tank and break the game himself, but he can also be like paired up with Tharya and then just like help her break the game more. Like by giving her +3 magic, +3 defense. So that she just doesn't take damage and then like just always heals it back up. With Nosferatu. And the only thing that kind of hurts is that you lose out on the movement. You kind of would want like, you know, because other good pair-ups for like Nosferatu tanking would be like Cordelia or Sumiya, where like you just like dump them on there, give them a shitload of movement, and then run them forward, and this also gives them like speed. Another reason why like Cordelia and Sumiya are like the best ever is because you can like dump Tharya or Henry on them, give them +3 speed. Probably more than that, considering at this point they probably have higher speed stats, but at minimum +3 speed, and then like high movement. It's just broken. It's so good. Henry's really good. I think he's kind of underrated, but he's like, he's right around here. You have to put in some more work for him to break the game, but he will do it like kind of eventually, but he needs like some specific sets of resources to do it. Whereas Tharya like gets to be up here because she just does it for longer and easier, and like that's kind of the thing. But like getting Henry to be like out of control monsters like way easier than getting these scrubs to be out of control monsters. Okay, then we have like Sairi, and pre-promotes are in a weird place in Awakening because they don't kind of get to take the same advantages that, you know, unpromoted units do, which is that like if they second seal, they go back to an unpromoted state, which means they take a stat loss. You take like when you second seal with like Sairi, she loses stats, which just kind of sucks like a lot, and you lose her like really good sword rank. At base, Sairi is like really fucking good, ridiculous speed, like something around 27, 28 speed at base, which is out of control good. Can use Killing Edge at base, just use Worm Slayer, like do a lot of really good things. But she joins at a point in the game where like being sword locked is not really what you want. So like her sort of main function when she joins is like being a really good pair-up bot, like around like just better than Lanku. At this point, like in a playthrough, like if you're being efficient, Lanku's probably not promoted. But Sairi is, and Sairi can just like, you could just dump her on Robin, or you can dump her on like, you know, anyone that you want to have just like a +7 speed or something, and like have them go to town. Like, she does that. If you want to make her viable as a combat unit, you kind of gotta like reclass her into a Pegasus Knight, which is nice. She does have good second seal options with Pegasus Knight. The problem is that E-Lances, and so like you probably would then want to invest like an arm scroll in her, get her javelins, and then like have her go to town. So then you have like, to make her a good combat unit, you've like had to invest a second seal into her, an arm scroll into her, and then also taking a big stat loss, which like is just, it's really rough. You can make it work though. She is out of the box like a usable unit in combat, like very, very serviceable player phase, like can do some work on player phase type of character, and then also just like you can second seal her, but it's pain. It's like, it's pretty balanced. It's a balanced like kind of pre-promote situation. I like it. And I'd say she's probably like around here. I put her above Kellum actually, because I like Sairi. Like, no bias. I think Lanku's like speed benefits that he gives people all game long are just so good, but yeah, like Sairi, I'm a fanboy, not gonna lie. Then you got Tiki. Tiki's really, like, her paralogue is really annoying because you got to play it like I play Path of Radiance. You can't ever attack on enemy phase, really, in that paralogue because of how the enemy AI works, and they try to kill Tiki, but I'm not holding that against her. She's a Manakee, just like Noe, just better stats, comes super late into the game, like, the gap between, like, because Sairi comes in, like, around the halfway point, just past the halfway point. Tiki comes in when there's, like, 6 or so chapters left. There's not a whole lot left. It's, like, the final fourth of the game or so that she comes in. 1-2 range is pretty good. Like, her stats are fine, but she has the issue, like, as a combat unit that, like, a lot of late game units have, which is that you can't really build them the way you would want to build other characters. She doesn't really have the opportunity to snowball out of control, and I think that hurts her a lot. She does have 1-2 range, of course, and her para bonuses, like Noe's, they're kind of split around in these different areas. They're not as focused as you'd want them to be. You'd wish they were all in strength, or they were all in magic or something, or all in speed, and they're just sort of all over the place, and like that hurts. I think the fact that out of the box she's just better at combat than Noe makes her better, because Noe's just really bad, I find. Like, you can chip with Noe reliably, but then enemy phase she just gets slaughtered. Tiki can, like, she's got good HP. Way better than, like, Noe. I think that's worth something. I think that's probably, like, around... is she better or worse than Anna? She's probably better than Vake. I might switch these two, actually, because I find Vake's, like... support bonuses are just like not that good. I think I like this better. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that. I don't know about this Tiki one. Tiki's kind of hard to rate. As are the last two units on here, Basilo and Flavia. These guys join very, 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 very late. They're like borderline Gatos in a way. Like, not that bad of availability. Like, I think they get like 4 chapters, but it's not all that good. What they do though is, like, unlike a lot of these scrubs down here, they are very good at combat out of the box. And I'm kind of talking about them generally because, like, they are very similar. But what they do is that, like, they're good support bots if you need one, and if you need, like, an extra combat unit, they get the job done. They're okay. There isn't a whole lot of in-depth kind of, like, any character building you'd want to do with these people, like, that you'd want to do with Basilo or Flavia is, like, you'd have to grind to do it because it's so late in the game. They don't really have an opportunity to be, like, second sealed and then rush through, like, 10 levels and then promoted again and then doing all that. There just really isn't too much of an opportunity for it. I think like Basilo in particular is like interesting because he comes, I think it's like A axes, B bows. And at least like bows are really bad in Awakening, and it's unlikely that you have like a good bow user at this point in the game. So what Basilo can definitely do for you is like, if you need someone to like break out the killer bow, break out like silver bow that you have lying around, like he can do it at base. He can throw silver axes, throw short axes around, like very serviceable, very like good combat unit. Like not like great, not gonna like knock the door down, but he's probably just gonna get like completely murdered on Lunatic Plus or some shit. But you know, he's gonna do the job, and then like the warrior pair-up bonuses are just stupid good. It's like something like 5 strength, 3 defense. It's like really busted. Like you can give it to somebody that you just want to like have hit really hard, and it works great. He also has rally strength, which is just rallying in Awakening is really nice because it does it within like 3 range. You can like rally strength your whole army pretty much right at the beginning, and then have them like rush down, you know, like a boss in a kill boss chapter or something. Like really, really good like unit, but you just don't have him for very long. So I think he's like probably like around right here, because I'd want to put him like right here probably. He's better than Pan, I'd say, because like the sections where he's good, oh boy is he good. He's not like great, but like, you know, we're not so great, we're so good, and he's like good. So yeah. Then you got Flavia. I love Flavia a lot, but she's like worse than Basilo, like not very good. She's got like A swords, B axes, which is all right, but she doesn't have any like, she doesn't have like a good niche out of the box, like a rally strength, and like she's a hero, and hero you know, pair-up bonuses are just like worse than Basilo, and like her availability I think is slightly worse as well, which just kind of like knocks her down. She's a good, fine combat unit, and like the pair-up bonuses for hero aren't terrible, but you know, and they're gonna be really good on her because she's gonna have all the stats. She's gonna have high stats at base, which is gonna improve it. So, you know, all right character in that regard. But probably, as much as I hate it, probably somewhere down in the C tier. I really hate putting Flavia this low because, like, fanboy, but she's better than Tiki. She's better than what Tiki provides you, I'd say. And I think, like, yeah, this is about it. I think, like, if you, like, count Robin as, like, one character, I think this tier list pretty balanced. Yeah, so that's the Gen 1 Awakening tier list, and this went on for like quite a while. No regrets though. I feel pretty satisfied with this looking over it, but you know, just decided, hey, look, let's pump out some low effort content real quick in between the scripted stuff. So give me some thoughts in the comments if you actually made it through here. You probably didn't, and I'm probably talking to nobody, but hey, you know what? It's just for our personal satisfaction, man. It's just something to do. It's just something to do. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video, whatever that may be. But, whenever it is, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.